Well, Iran is set to begin a final round of talks with world powers next week to reach a final agreement on curbing its nuclear program. But now there are new concerns. The fragile U.S.-backed deal could end up setting up the stage for a nuclear arms race with others in the region. This is in order to protect themselves from Tehran if things fall through. Stephen Yates is a former deputy assistant to Vice President Cheney for National Security Affairs and a distinguished fellow at the Hamilton Foundation. Stephen, good to see you.
Hi, Arthel. Good to be with you.
So, these dealings, they always come with a double-edged sword, right? I mean, a more immediate deal satisfies more immediate concerns like nukes, but couldn't Iran eventually be seen in a different light by other radicals as, the sly dog who figured out how to work the diplomatic system?
That's very much a concern here. They have been at this business of negotiating about their nuclear programs for the better part of 2 decades. We are at an exceedingly similar point in the second term of the Clinton administration, where we thought, once again, that a reformer had been elected. We entered a negotiating process, but late in that Clinton second term, they backed off when they realized the Ayatollah was really in charge, the same Ayatollah we're dealing with now, and that Iran hadn't made the strategic decision to forego nuclear weapons capabilities. And so our allies in the region, Israel, but also some of our Arab allies, they've seen this movie before, and they sense that there's maybe a desire to squeeze some concessions in to secure a deal that's imperfect, that leaves them vulnerable.
And which brings us to this subject that we started out talking about, which is that setting the stage for a nuclear arms race. I mean, Saudi Arabia, for example, they're saying, look, if Iran has nukes, then we might get some too. We might need to.
That's right. Well, when the United States ceases to be a reliable ally to help work together and protect their interests, they really have no choice but to recalibrate their own deterrent, and whether they'll act alone or in a new coalition to counter what they see as a rising influence from Iran across the region. Iran lately has been destabilizing many Sunni regimes in Iraq. There's the battle in Syria spilling over, but also throughout the Arab Spring. And so they see a broader threat than just the technicalities of a nuclear program.
And look, some would argue, Stephen, a perceivable bad deal is better than no deal at all. But that one constant that can't be extracted from this equation, and that's distrust. I mean, can countries like Iran or North Korea be trusted to follow through on any deal that might be reached?
Well, history to date would suggest that they can't be trusted, but we have had effective negotiations in the past with governments we didn't trust. I think the highest profile example of this would have been during the Reagan administration, when President Reagan had called for that regime going to the ash heap of history, delegitimizing it, at the same time negotiating arms controls. There are ways this can be done, but we have to have a serious purpose about deterring in case of failure of diplomacy. And we have to have the confidence of our allies if those are going to succeed.
And having laid out all of the complexities involved, I mean, would you recommend the U.S. shut down talks with Iran?
I'm fine with the United States continuing talks as long as we don't put all of our eggs in that basket. I also think that the sanctions should not have been lifted. I think that as we kept high standards in the talks, complete, verifiable, irreversible dismantlement, and kept sanctions in place until we had the verification stage moving forward, I'd be much more comfortable with this taking a longer term.
Well, Stephen Yates, you always bring interesting perspective to the table on these types of subjects, and we appreciate your time here today. Good to see you, sir. Have a good
Thank you very much, Arthel.
rest of your Saturday afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's very